As we continue our study of discussions on the kingdom story, rebellion, part 4, we're going to be furthering our look at the schemes of the enemy. And as we have really worked to make it clear, it's very important for us. Even 2 Corinthians 2:11 reminds us that we are not to be ignorant of the schemes of the enemy, and lest Satan should take advantage of us. And so, a lot of believers, this is why this is important. A lot of believers and non-believers, or a lot of people in this world, literally are, even though they may go to church, they may be religious or consider themselves spiritual, are actually ignorant of the schemes and devices of the enemy and are being taken advantage of. So, the goal of this study, as we've already mentioned, as we start to look through this part of the kingdom story, is so that we would not be taken advantage of by the enemy. And in fact, we would come to a place where we begin to take advantage of the enemy. Kind of flip this thing uh, on its heels. So, as a point of overview, we will go back and take a look at the kingdom storyline, which was actually dealt with. Part of it was dealt with in the red letter snippets, body of teachings. In this segment that we're doing now, our focus is not on the snippet side. After the fall of man, which actually is shows up here um, on Dominion Restored. That part there, we're now focusing on what we're calling rebellion, but that includes a rebellion. Um, the war, rebellion is still going on, a war in heaven, the earth being corrupted, Eden being established, and the fall of mankind. Under this overview, we're going to be focusing principally from an outline, a schematic standpoint, Ephesians 6:12, which says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong." Great admonition in the Lord, and be strong in the power of His might. Put on the whole armor of God. But take a look at this part, because we are probably familiar with the concept, put on the armor of God. But here's why: so that we would be able to stand against the wild devices or schemes, same word here, of the devil. Very important, so that we're able to stand, so he doesn't take advantage of us. Because, um, contrary to popular belief, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high or heavenly places. And therefore, we should take on the whole armor of God so that we can withstand in the evil day and the evil day of testing. And then, after having done all to stand, uh, then stand further, therefore. We're probably very familiar with that scripture. And so, as we start to look at this now, our focus or categories as we are talking about this rebellion is going to be about principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, evil spirits, and fallen men. And this actually creates or makes up the sort of org structure that is functioning under the kingdom of darkness, and it's a result of the rebellion. And the importance of this for us is that we have been placed here. Actually, we're in a warfare against those forces, and whether we want to actively participate or not, they have schemes and devices that are coming against us, that are impacting our lives, the lives of the people around us, our loved ones, and those who may not be walking with God in God's light at this moment. And so, as we kind of look at each one of these groups, and we only have a limited amount of what to work with from the scriptures. So I'm going to do my best to try not to stretch into too many other ideas of what I call black hole issues for us to get sidetracked. So, principalities, It's very interesting in the root of that word. That means it's the chief ruling angels. So in that, as we had looked before in the rebellion, that 1/3 of the angels sided with Satan against God, rebelled against God's kingdom, and moved to establish Satan's kingdom. The seat of his throne ended up being on the earth when he was cast out of heaven, the earth and the heavenly realms right beyond the earth. And then uh, he then also gave mankind through Adam and Eve the invite to join him, and they did. And so I like to, just from a visual standpoint, 1/3 of the angels and probably something like 2/3 of the human beings. And I only say that, we don't have an actual number, but I only say that because uh, those who are following God, we are referred to as a remnant, which means a small portion. So we know that the majority of human beings who fell um, and turned against God, and really, that's the backdrop of the story in Genesis. Though we try to just make it only a creation story, it's really not the point of that. It's really talking about these two lineages that take place of men that followed God, and men that did not, men that went off into rebellion, and those who repented and just tried to cleave to God, waiting for God's Redeemer. And so, under principalities, that word there, archis, or chief ruling angels, there were chief ruling angels. Uh, and it literally in the Greek, that word that's used means angels of the highest rank, and that they are rulers of other fallen angels. Um, they set and delegate satanic strategy, Satan's strategy, likely because we know that there are angels that Jude 1:6 and 2 Peter 2:4 talk about them being actually bound. We know that all of the fallen or dark beings and angels on this page are not um, completely bound at this time. Second organizational group is powers. Um, that word is the word exousia, which means authority, delegated authority, and influence. And so the powers actually carry out the strategy and directions of the principalities. Next are rulers, the cosmos, Skratos, I probably didn't pronounce that right, Skrato, which world ruler of darkness. They exercise the darkness. Their responsibility is to maintain darkness through the world system. And they exercise that darkness over a certain geographical area. We don't know that those geographical areas are necessarily organized the same way we organize geographical areas, meaning, there's a ruler of darkness, um, spirit over your city, and one that's over your county, and one that is over your house, and one that is over your state, and one that is over your country. We don't know the exact order, but we do understand from the scriptures that they are deal with geographical darkness, and the goal is actually to produce darkness, maintain darkness, and we'll see that more. And in fact, since we've already gone through the segment on the fallen men, we understand that they are the children of darkness, so they're impacted by all of this, and we are impacted by all of this. Next are evil spirits, and that word evil spirit is actually the demon spirit. It means evil spirit. Um, Poneris means to be depraved or wicked. They oppress and torment and enslave people to sin, torment the mind, the soul, and the body. And of course, the last group that we're probably most familiar with is just talking about humans who have their understanding darkened, and they're alienated from the life of God. And so, this is giving us information. We have an adversary. We discussed earlier how the scriptures told us that God had an adversary, and then we saw that because God had an adversary and we belong to God, we have an adversary, the devil, who it says goeth about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And so this going to give us, as we walk through this, a sense of what these forces are doing, what their strategy or devices are, and then ultimately we're going to look at what we should be doing about it, and what God has done about it, and what we should be doing in the midst of this, because all of these forces here are aligned and are working to basically keep you from being fulfilling your life purpose, and being effective in your sphere of influence. I know you got saved and you were just told go to church and sing a song and go back home, but this is what the scriptures talk to us about what's involved in our walk with God. So in this specific study, this focus now, we already did the study on the fall of man. These discussions, study discussions, are going to center around the rulers of darkness, understanding the role of the rulers of darkness, what they're doing, how we interact with that. We saw the deeds of darkness under the fallen men, but those deeds of darkness are actually um, impressed upon people. They get produced by these rulers of darkness. They create the environment, the backdrop for that to take place. And so um, this section we're going to talk about pressure, because that's the word that I want to use, so that we could understand that those dark rulers of darkness or geographical areas, one of the things that they're doing is they are creating a certain pressure that everyone in the world is under. It's actually a dark demonic pressure, um, to get us to manifest, function, think like Satan. If we go back to what we talked about in the beginning about the devil and about Lucifer's fall, we had the opportunity to actually get a picture of the different names and his nature and character, his fallen nature and character. When we stepped forward and took a look at the children of darkness, we saw that list of about 34, 36 things that it was talking about were manifestations of the nature and character of Satan. And so there's this general pressure from just living in the world, like the world system, how the world functions, because it says that Satan is the god of this world system. And so there's this pressure, and we're going to take a look at this pressure. So number one, those rulers of darkness, they function under the god of this world, under delegated authority, under principalities and powers that we looked at. One of the things that we'll see here, it says, but if the gospel's head is head to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world, now let's take a look at what the God of this world does. He's blinded the minds of them which don't believe, unless the light of the gospel of Christ would shine into them, unto them, and which is the image of God. So we have one force that's molding us into the image of Satan, uh, uh, and another force through God and His Spirit in us molds us into the image of Christ. And you can already see where that battlefield and that conflict is. Uh, the phrase God of this world or God of this age, so we understand what this means, it refers to Satan, who by assigned rulers of darkness influences the ideas, opinions, goals, hopes, and views of people through the world system. This influence encompasses world religions, philosophies, educations, commerce, customs, and traditions. So basically, what's going on here is that Satan and his dark kingdom is actually working to provide pressure and influence our ideas through the world system, our ideals, opinions, goals, hopes, and views. And that gets reinforced again through education, philosophies, customs, traditions. So The word pressure, just by definition, so we can get a feel for this, because you can live in this world and not really even understand that you are under it. That word, actually, from Webster's Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is the creation and use of social economic norms to persuade, influence, or intimidate, a forced conformity to a standard through physical or mental distress. That's a lot, but I just need you to really just get this in your heart a little bit. There's this pressure uh, by just being in the world, and it's constant. Just like the television signals and the radio signals constantly coming, 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 coming. There's this pressure, um, and it's to actually take the darkness and make it a norm through the use of social, economic, setting up norms to make this a situation where people are influenced or actually intimidated to conform to this dark standard, which is the image of Satan. Um, and literally, what is taking place is through this world, the design of the world system. Um, and this includes everything in the world system. It's not saying that, the good one versus the bad one. This is how the world system is. So this isn't like a democracy versus communism type thing. This is talking about a kingdom thing. And so it literally creates the desires of the people. The commercials, all the things that are taking place that we get exposed to, the television shows create our desires and expectations. So the dark kingdom is actually creating the desires, and then what we're going to find out in the next phase of this is they create the backdrop. They give us the desires, and then they use those desires to actually tempt us and bring us into complete bondage. It's just so unfair. It's like a setup. And if you don't go along with this, then these are the things you can face: physical intimidation, bullying, harassment, shame, or just a desire for acceptance will make us conform to the image of Satan. When we looked at the deeds of darkness, and hopefully we looked at that from even now a different perspective. First perspective is like, okay, how am I? Because it tells us avoid this behavior. Why did it say avoid this behavior? Because these are the fruits of Satan. And if you belong to me, the Lord is saying, like, we don't need you manifesting Satan fruits out here in the world. We need you to be that city that sets on a hill, and that light for other people to see. And so let your light so shine that men would see your good works. I always drop a O and say God works. So we can see, they can see God in us, like not just that I do good stuff, but they see, my God work. They see God working in me. And then once they see God working in me, they'll call upon the name of the Lord. It's part of our witness. And the enemy wants us to be intermingled with the deeds of darkness so people don't see the light. And so one of those talked about intoxication being one of the deeds or fruits of darkness. And so you trying to enter into work world and all this, and everybody's like, oh well, no, come on, we need to get drunk, come on out, let's get drunk. And if you don't get drunk, you get hassled, you get harassed, you get shamed. If you're a guy and you would say, like, or a young lady, and say that you wanted to keep yourself and not fornicate or commit adultery or do anything like that, no, you get bullied. There's this subtle pressure for you to conform. And I don't ever think we think about what image is that we have this pressure on. I want to be like the housewives of Atlanta, or, the housewives of Utah or LA, but we look at that, what that image is that's going on with the people. It's really not talking about the image of Christ. It's not focusing on whatsoever things are good, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are of good report. If it has any virtue or if it has any praise, the scripture says, think on these things. Now, we can't get out of the world, so we're going to be subject to the pressure, but what God has called us to do is for us not to become overcome by the pressure, but that we do not be overcome like with evil, but overcome evil with good. I mean, I'm gonna drop that O, and with God working in you. And so now we can start to get a really good, clearer picture of what the scriptures are actually admonishing us to do. It's a kingdom conversation. The whole thing is a kingdom conversation. And so, just as a review, what kind of things, it does the world system promote? Does it promote jealousy? Does it promote anger and wrath? Yeah, like if you stepped on your foot, yeah, you should be able to turn on the movies, look at what's happening, what we've been bombarded with. We've been bombarded with murders, not just in our society. It's in our society everywhere. Like $150, you could put a hit on. It's $150 is what a life is worth on the street. It's we have to understand like this is really the environment that we have, and be careful because our admonition out of this is not going to be to point our finger. It's letting us know that the world is in darkness, and this is what it's doing. This is what it's going to do, and we're the ones that are supposed to be different, not the world. You have to come out of the world, come into the Lord to be different. So it's not to be named among us, but to be honest with you, the people that are just under darkness, this should begin to set our expectation of that we're going to have this pressure. We're going to be ridiculed. We're going to be bullied. And we have to then stand therefore, like we read before, and help each other to do that. Sorcery is everywhere. All the cartoons, all the books that we read about, and um, strife, contention, wild parties, every movie, everything. It's like popping out to me everywhere, and it's in the news because we're seeing this stuff is in people's lives. Unbridled passion, rioting, stealing, lying, pride, chambering. We went through all of this, but again, now I think if you start to look at this world system, you'll say, oh, yeah, okay, selfish ambition, crude behavior, popping a bird, grabbing your crotch. We laughing at all that. We think it's all funny, but we're not realizing we need to have reality that all of this is actually part of this pressure that's put on us to conform to these things. It says these things are okay. When you turn 21, you'll be able to drink and get drunk, and it's okay then. And so young people are living to get old enough to where it's okay as an adult to take on this behavior, having no idea that this is really at the center of a spiritual battle. And so, number two, those forces of darkness that are over geographical areas, they hide the truth of the kingdom, and they do that by that's the darkness hiding the light of the kingdom by blinding the lost, and they hide it to the lost, and they blind the minds of those that don't believe. And that's right here in 2 Corinthians 4:3, that if the gospel is hid, it's hid to those that are lost, in whom the God of this world he blinded their minds that don't believe, unless the light of the gospel will shine in. Number three, it says that they actually have the world under their sway. They will sway the world whichever way they want to sway the world. I remember I always think about the Wiz that came out, and the wizard was in the back. Behind the curtain, and all the people were out dancing, and they're like, green, green, the color's green, and they walked around in their green, and then they said, red, red, the color's red. And it made me think like of our fashion design and how our society is. Those dark forces, like, they just sway us back and forth from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. It's part of their strategy to keep our minds, to hide the light of the gospel and the truth of the gospel of the kingdom, what the kingdom is really about, and to have the minds of them that unbelieve, not them that believe, but the minds of them that unbelieve stay blinded. So if they're blind, don't get mad at them. If your brother and sister is acting like they're blind, we should have it. We should talk about it and get this thing fixed. Because Jesus told the disciples that what you are is you're blind leaders of the blind, and you both will fall into the pit. And that's why he was so upset with them because they should know better than that and they should have been leading people to the light. And so they have the whole world that lies under the sway of the wicked one, and that takes place through the world system. Number four, they promote and propagate the world system to control and influence people through the deeds of the uh, lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. 1 John 2:16. And getting a more detailed look at that so we can really understand. So, within our fallen nature in our body, we have to, it says all that is in the world. That's what that scripture just said. All that is in the world is the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And so everything is designed to appeal to our desire. In the word lust here, in the Greek word reference 1939 means desire, lust, longing, eagerness for, and having an inordinate desire for something. And so the flesh means satisfaction of the flesh, the body, human nature. Um, it's talking about like a material type thing, right? So the desires of the flesh, desires for food, desires for or inordinate desires. Uh, Look at the lust of the eye. So that's dealing with the things that we see, right? And so the enemy is going to give us something that it's going to be comfort, flesh comfort, whatever it is. It's going to be something that's going to appeal to our eyes, that looks pretty, looks good for us, to lure us in. And the last thing is pride, and that word means boastful arrogance or showy arrogance, to be ostentatious, you know. So you got to have this big chain, you got to have this car, you got to have this thing, and that means like you the big dog, you the big cat. It speaks to my manner of life. And those are all that's in the world that the enemy's doing to stoke and fire lust and in the hearts of men. And again, we're not really talking about believers, because we're not under the control of any of this. We feel the pressure, but through Jesus Christ we have victory. Don't forget that if you were in the snippets teaching and we talked about the maturation process or steps of the believers, that they go from young men to children to fathers. And in First John, one of the characteristics of the young man stage was they have overcome the wicked one. And if you went through that with me, we're not talking about men versus women. We're just talking about the stage of the young person stage. And so if you look at that list of 34 things, and if you don't have victory over those things in your life, then you probably have not mastered that middle stage of development yet. Now, that does not mean that you lied one day, so therefore, you just haven't, you're not there yet. But the question is, are you an overcomer of that? In general, are you an overcomer of fornication? And then the question would be, if I'm not, then how do I get myself there in Christ Jesus? And there's some things that you need to do. Or am I overcomer in the area of intoxication? Am I overcomer in the area of anger? Am I an overcomer, or does it just consistently overcome me? And then the other question, when we talk about the children of darkness, children of darkness are not trying to not be that way, really. All of that is fine to be that way. That's the difference between the two. And so, number five, that those rulers of darkness, they use the world system to actually, and I mentioned this before, but I want you to see it, to bring people into conformity to darkness in the image of Satan. Romans 12 says, and he's saying to them, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you'd be able to know, God's good, acceptable, and perfect will. But you have to be transformed, because there's this pressure to conform everyone to the world system, which is basically Satan's system, Satan's way of thinking, Satan's character. 1 Peter 1:13 says, as obedient children, don't conform yourselves to your former lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life, right? That's all that's in the world. That's the tie. As when you were ignorant, you did that when you were ignorant. But as he who has called you is holy, or separate or pure, untainted. You also should be holy in all of your conduct. That's what you should be. The people that are children of darkness should not be until they become children of the light. That's important because we are placed there to be a witness. We're placed there to be a physician when they are really get beat down and can't take the pressure anymore. And so that's why we need to make sure we are whole and strong enough to fulfill our purpose that God has created us for. Number 6, they influence people to live according to the course of this world. Again, it says in Ephesians 2:2 that we once walked according to the course of this world. People in darkness still walk according to. They live. The word walk means to live. They practice life according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now works in the sons of disobedience. Wouldn't have anything to do with us because that spirit should not be working in us, and we should be overcomers of that. But it's to help us understand, like when you wake up every day and you turn your radio on and turn your TV on and go to work or go to school or do whatever you're doing, it will just help you really be focused. Like, hey, this is what I'm sending you into, and I want you to be, as Jesus said, wise as a serpent. So I want you to understand this, but I want you to be harmless as a dove. Number 7, literally what they do through the world system is they choke out the word that's sown, and it renders what God has said that actually gets in the heart, through the world system and through this oppression of darkness. It makes the word unfruitful in the lives of people. And so Matthew 13:22, if you remember, it says, now he who received the seed among the thorns, which were I believe the cares of this life, the cares of this world. It says that it is he who hears what Jesus said, hears the word, hears what was spoken. But the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches chokes the word and it becomes unfruitful. This is some powerful stuff. And largely, people have no clue that they're actually under it. And then number 8, they hold people in bondage through the cares of this world. And we, again, this scripture, like before, says that, when we were children, we were in bondage under the elements of this world, basic elements of this world. And we talked about what some of those basic elements are. But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his son, born of a woman and born under the law. So we've been set free from that. Thank God that God has that provision for us to not have to be under the control of that. Number 9, they cheat people through philosophy, empty deceit, according to the traditions of men. And so even a lot of traditions that we have, our religious traditions, our social traditions, our cultural traditions of men, don't mistake that for being of God. We need to have the traditions of God, and the traditions of God need to rule over the traditions of men. Well, this is how my daddy did it, and how my granddaddy did it, how my great-great-grandpappy did it, and this is how I do it. No, that's not what God wants to have for you. That is not right. We just need to do like what God said we're supposed to be doing and trade that out. And it says here that the people, it uses the word to cheat you through philosophy, empty deceit, and the tradition of men. 3 things: empty deceit, philosophy, and the traditions of men, according to the basic principles of this world and not according to Christ. We're allowing the enemy to cheat us, to steal from us. That's why I said steal, kill, and destroy. Number 10, last one. Um, Literally, they, through this system of oppression and darkness, deceive the whole world. And it just says the great dragon was cast out, and the serpent of old, called the devil, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast with him. And so it's this whole process of deception that this system puts in places on us. Uh, in summary, we talked about that they hide the truth of the kingdom. They blind the minds of those that don't believe. They use the world system to bring people into conformity with darkness and be molded into the image of Satan. They use this system to control and influence people through desires of the flesh, the eyes, and the pride of life. They hold or have the world under their sway. They choke out through this system. They choke out the sown word and render it unfruitful. That's the word that actually went into that is being shared with us about what God has said to people. They hold the people in bondage through the cares of this world system and conform them to live according to the course of this world system. So yeah, it's okay to be intoxicated. It's okay to have free sex. It's okay to have anger and vent it on people if they do something wrong. It's cool to grab your crotch and pop the bird and this is normal expectation, and this is what you should be out here doing. They cheat people through philosophy and empty deceit. Biggie thing here through the tradition of men, basic ideas and principles of the world, and then they have the whole world in deception. So if you should look for your uh, discussion questions on this, and I look forward to us being able to have a discussion together on how this impacts us, and when we meet the next time. Be blessed.